It's really late. It's really late tonight, and I'm very tired. I wish I could go to sleep, but I'm also sad tonight, and so it's really hard for me to go, lay in bed and just be sad. I'm not sure what to do. I'm trying to figure out what I'm sad about. And I think what I'm sad about is that I didn't really talk to anybody all day. It was a full Saturday. I did a lot of stuff, but I didn't really talk to anyone. Didn't really interact with anybody. Other than, I went out for dinner and I talked to the guy who took my order. And that's... Oh, and I told a lady that I didn't have any cash. She asked if I could spare any change, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. I'm really sorry. That was it, and that's really the only two things that I said to anybody all day. And maybe that's kind of a self-fulfilling thing, because I was gonna go to a comedy show today. A person that I know, a friend from class, I'll say, this was performing in a comedy show, and I had planned to go to that, and it was at 9 o'clock, but then at 8:30. At 8:30, I was out having dinner. I was gonna go out and have dinner somewhere and then go to this comedy show. But then after dinner, at about 8:30, I just changed course and decided to come back to my apartment and watch a movie. Finish a movie, actually. I'd started Captain America, the First Avenger, earlier, and I came back and finished it. But maybe that was the wrong choice. I felt fine at the time, but then at about 10 o'clock, I just started being real sad and feeling sad. Yeah. Really miss Gabby a lot today. I started on the financial paperwork for the court. And there's it's a lot of it, and it turns out I need access to a bunch of stuff to fill it out, so I'm going to do that over time, and I'll need to be using my work laptop and things in order to pull stuff up. But it wasn't as depressing as I thought it was going to be. I only worked on it for 10 minutes just to see what all I had to input, but it wasn't that depressing because it was very clinical, I think. It was really about, it was very, very factual, It was all laid out and it was very factual, and that the fact that it's factual rather than subjective or emotional makes it a lot easier to deal with. So I think I'm going to be okay with that. I think every day that I work on it, I am going to be sad, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as I feared that it would be. And I read another chapter in the Rebuilding book today. Let me pick that up. This book, Rebuilding. Rebuilding When Your Relationship Ends by Bruce Fisher. This is the 1983 version. And today I read what chapter was it? It was chapter 4, Guilt and Rejection. And in this chapter, it kind of frames frames it where every relationship has a dumper and a dumpy, and he uses the terms dumper and dumpy. In the most recent version of the book, they say initiator and resistor because it doesn't have the negative connotations of dumper and dumpy, but he actually gives a decent explanation for why he chose the original words dumper and dumpy, and it's really about accepting the I'm going to go with the emotional baggage that comes with what side of that you're on. Initiator and resistor, I think Bruce Fisher would find initiator and resistor to be a little too clean sounding, and that dumper and dumpy carry the emotional weight that he wants them to have, because the dumper, as the person who decides to initiate the end of the relationship, that doesn't always mean that they're the person that files for divorce first, but they're the person who decides to end the relationship. And I will also want to clarify that in most relationships, both parties are both dumper and dumpy. They are just they play each role to different extents. I forget where I was going. The chapter made me really angry. Yeah, I got angry while reading the chapter. Why did I get angry? It's hard to remember, honestly, what I was mad about. I think it's pretty clear to me that I am the dumpy in this. Gabby is the dumper. And in the book it says that the dumper typically starts checking out of the relationship a long time before they actually make the call to end it. And so I wonder how far back that goes. And in the chapter he says that the dumper typically doesn't see it. And that's very true in my case. I definitely didn't see it. And in the book he says that the dumpy can sometimes be in denial toward the end of the relationship, and I wonder if I was. And I'm trying to go back through and see if, did I miss, were there big signs that I missed? And the answer is no, I don't think there were signs that I missed. I think there were signs that I didn't take as seriously as I should have. Last fall, Gabby asked me to do 3 things. She asked me to see a counselor. She asked me to take an anger management class, and she asked me to find us a marriage counselor. And I mostly failed on all 3 of those. And I wonder if that was a denial thing. Here's the deal, I don't think it was denial. I think I genuinely didn't understand how important those things were. I think I just genuinely didn't understand what Gabby was saying or what she was going through. So what I did was I started seeing a student counselor through a local university. And the other 2 I just hadn't done. But what's another thing that's interesting to me is that I know Gabby brought that up in the fall, but then months went by, and I don't think we ever talked about it again. And if they were so important to her, why didn't we talk about them again? And I would ask her, this is something that I'm having a lot of trouble rectifying as I think about it, is that I know that I asked Gabby over and over and over all the time, once a day, at least 5 times a week. I would ask her how she was doing, how we were doing, and just give her so many opportunities to talk to me, to if she had really had those strong feelings about the counselor and the anger management and the marriage counselor, why didn't they get brought up? But also, should she have to bring them up more than once? I think if they're important to you, you bring them up again. I don't think I was in denial. I think I genuinely didn't understand. Because I would not have buried my head in the sand over this. If I'd known that something was going wrong in the relationship, if I had reason to believe that we weren't getting better, here's the deal. I know that we had a hard time in the fall, but I genuinely 100% believed that things were getting better and that we were doing really well in March. 100%, I am certain with all of my heart that we were doing well in March until that last weekend. And I don't think it was denial. I don't think I was ignoring signs that we were doing bad. I think we were genuinely doing well. And I think that last weekend of March, I think it catapulted Gabby back 6 months. And she rewrote history to suit her emotional state, and rewrote our history to ignore the fact that things were getting better. I don't know. When I took the Rebuilders International divorce recovery quiz or something, my lowest score was in thinking. And so it said something like that I'm still not doing a great job of thinking. I don't know. That I still see us very much as connected, me and Gabby, and that's very true. I definitely do. Well, let me read to you these questions from the end of this chapter on guilt and rejection. Yes. Dumpers tend to feel a lot of guilt for leaving, and dumpies tend to feel a lot of rejection. I don't feel rejected so much as I feel abandoned. And I think those are really meaningfully different. It also says in the chapter that the dumper tends to want to experience personal growth, and that the dumpy wants to cling to the relationship, and that's very true. I think in our case, Gabby once told me that she thought she would be thriving if she didn't have to care about me, like I was holding her back. And I don't think that's true at all. I think she had a very, in her emotional state, I think she had a very shallow view of how our relationship was affecting her. Because I have been incredibly supportive of her through the entire time. I don't know what she thinks is going to be easier without me. But, she's lived without me for a few months now, so hopefully she is finding it easier. And hopefully she is experiencing the personal growth that she wants to experience. Oh man, and I'm worried that she's not, and that she's somehow still blaming me for it. Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm really getting the short end of the stick here. Like, every positive thing about me is being ignored. Alright. Like I said, this chapter actually made me really angry while I was reading it. So, let's do the questions at the end. Number 1, I am no longer overwhelmed by feelings of guilt or rejection. Like I said, I'm not really overwhelmed by feelings of rejection. I am overwhelmed by feelings of abandonment. I believe that almost everyone that I have ever interacted with in my life only seems to want to be around me when I can give them something. And as soon as I'm not there to just give them whatever it is they want, they abandon me. I've experienced that multiple times, and this feels very much like one of those cases. It feels very much to me like whenever I needed help, whenever I was still there supporting Gabby with every minute of my time and every fiber of my being. Everything that I could possibly do to support her, I was doing, but I also needed help at that time. But I'm not allowed to need help. If I need help, that means get rid of me. That's what my life has taught me. I don't feel rejected, I feel abandoned. Number 2 here. I can accept that I was a dumper or a dumpy, or that we made a mutual decision. Yeah, I can accept that I was a dumpy. Number 3, I have thought about whether I was a good or bad dumper or dumpy. And I have. And as angry as I am, as I think about it, I think Gabby and I were both good. I think she was a good dumper. I think I was a good dumpy. I think she tried to do things to make things better. We did see a marriage counselor for a while, although she's the one who called that off and demanded that I switch us to a different marriage counselor. But she was open to marriage counseling. She did bring stuff up at least once. Yeah, I think she was a good dumper. I think she's just barely over the line into good, but I think she was good. And I think I was a good dumpy, and I'm probably pretty close to the line too. Number 4, I can accept that being a dumper may not necessarily mean one should feel guilty. I can accept that. I think Gabby should feel guilty. I think she should feel very guilty. But it's not always true for everybody. My parents got divorced. My mom was the dumper. I don't think she should feel guilty at all. But I think Gabby should feel guilty. Number 5, I can accept that being a dumpy may not necessarily mean one should feel rejected or unlovable. Of course not. I would think that most of the time, maybe at least half of the time, that the breakdown of a love relationship or a marriage, especially one that's been going on for years, is probably more due to timing and circumstances rather than either of the two individuals. Mostly. So yeah, I don't think being a dumpy necessarily means that a person should feel rejected or unlovable. I think I often feel unlovable, but that's been going on for years. I don't think it's part of this. I am worried that I will never be loved again. But not because of the divorce. I was worried about that the whole time. Okay, number 6. I am aware of the differences in feelings and behavior between dumpers and dumpies. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the big difference is time, because the dumper is often checked out. They've often ended the relationship for months before they tell the other person, which personally I think is really messed up, and I think it's really immoral. And so I think for the most part, dumpers should feel guilty most of the time. And I do think Gabby should feel guilty. But yeah, I understand the difference in feelings and behaviors. Okay. Number 7, I realize that both dumpers and dumpies feel emotional pain, even though it may differ in timing and intensity. Yeah, sure, a whole lot. If I'm being honest, I think that at this point, Gabby's probably in more emotional pain than I am. And I think the secret is that I have spent so much time throughout my adult life in introspection and building emotional skills. Not that I'm great at all of them, but I've worked through a whole bunch of things. I've seen a lot of counselors. I've built a lot of skills. I've done a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness stuff. And so I think that I am able to move through unpleasant emotions pretty effectively. And in the time that I have known Gabby, she has been the opposite. She avoids introspection and self-reflection because it's hard and scary, and there's a lot of things from her past that she would not like to have to deal with. So she just avoids it. And I think trying to avoid it, trying not to be emotional, leads to more emotional pain. And so I don't know for sure because I haven't seen Gabby in months, but I bet that's what she's going through. In fact, I bet that's why she made the switch from temporary separation to permanent divorce. I think is probably likely driven by her trying to avoid dealing with her own emotions, with complex and difficult emotions, which leads her into more emotional pain. And so now whenever she thinks about me, she feels the pain rather than the real emotions underlying it. She just feels the pain. And so she's just connected me with pain and decided to get divorced instead of dealing with her emotions. All right. That's a guess. I don't know. I haven't seen her in a while. But I feel like I know her pretty well. 8. I understand that in some areas I was a dumper and in other areas I was a dumpee, since this is typical of most relationships. I guess. This is a hard one for me to wrap my head around. In what way was I a dumper? I guess I didn't do the stuff that Gabby asked me to do. That I didn't see a counselor, etc. For a while. I took too long to do it. I don't know. No, I don't think I was a dumper at all. Maybe it's atypical, but I don't think I was a dumper at all. Number 9, I understand the concept of dumper and dumpy is most meaningful at the point of separation. As I grow, it becomes less and less important. Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, the difference really is timing. The dumper has months to kind of deal with things in a low key way, whereas the dumpy has everything thrust upon them all of a sudden. I don't know that Gabby and I had that as much. I don't know what she was feeling because she never told me anything, but like I said, I genuinely believe that we were doing a lot better until that last weekend. And then over the course of 2 days, I think Gabby rewrote history to erase the previous 3 months. So in that case, we both kind of had it all thrust upon us very quickly. Now, number 10. I have looked at my life patterns to see if rejection or guilt feelings have controlled much of my behavior. Yeah, I think they do. I have a lot of both of those. I do have a fear of rejection or a fear of abandonment, actually. A very deep, ingrained, powerful fear of abandonment. And feelings of guilt have been problematic in the past. My previous relationship before Gabby was very bad, very awful. But every time I tried to end it, I would feel so guilty that I would just get suckered back in. It was really bad. It was awful. And I was stuck for so long because of those feelings of guilt. Number 11. I am working to overcome the influence of rejection and guilt in my life. Yeah, I am. People say it's about self-worth. I don't know if I have low self-worth or not. I guess it's something to work on with my counselor. I have a fear of abandonment. As I've said before, there's a lot of evidence gathered throughout my life that points to people only like to have me around when they can take something from me. And when the relationship starts to be bi-directional, they just abandon me. It's not even waiting for when I need more help than they do or when I'm no longer able to help them. No, just when it becomes bi-directional, whenever I am still helping them, but also I need support in return. That's the point of abandonment that has come up. I'm going to go with probably 6 or 7 times in my life. Not always in romantic relationships, but in romantic relationships, in friendships, in work relationships. If I can't just always provide if I can't provide what somebody else wants from me, if I don't have something for them to take, then they just abandon me. I'm trying to feel something other than that, but it's hard because there's like 20 years of evidence of that. And well, with Gabby now, my mom, I think, is the only relationship I've had in my life where I don't think that dynamic has ever come into play. And then with guilt, I know how bad that feels. So like in my previous relationship that like I talked about where it was awful and I was stuck in it for 5 years. I was stuck in it because I felt so guilty. And a lot of that was because I know how bad it feels. I know how bad it feels. And I just didn't want someone else to hurt like that. So for 5 years I stayed in a relationship where she yelled at me and she pinched me and she hit me and she was possessive and angry. And I stayed there for 5 years because every time I would sum up my courage to say something, she would fall apart and she would cry, and I would know what that felt like on the inside, or I would know how I had felt at least. And I just had so much trouble doing something that would make another person feel like that I stayed for 5 years. And you know what finally put me over? Yeah, I'll tell you what finally put me over. What finally put me over on that relationship was I was in a similar position to how I was last year, where I was very depressed and having a lot of suicidal thoughts and in need of support. Support from this person. And I was out of town. I was in Washington, D.C., and I called her late one night and I told her that I was thinking about killing myself. And she said, if you're going to keep talking about it, then just do it already. And she told me I could step in front of a bus, or I could jump off the balcony, or I don't remember. There were 4 or 5 options that she gave me. And that was it. Coming to her in pain and having her tell me to kill myself was what put me, it's what allowed me to harden my heart enough to break things off with her. Yeah, so I'm trying to overcome the rejection and guilt from my past. Turned into a long one today. But you know what I do? Honestly, I feel a little better, and I think I might actually get some sleep now, which is going to be good because I am very tired. I'll see you guys tomorrow.